Welcome csc103 to exercise 23, at least for the fall 2019 semester. This is our SpongeBob database and our world database. We're going to be using phpMyAdmin. We're going to be using a demo online version of phpMyAdmin, and it's just kind of a sandbox, so there are some issues that you may run into, so you may have to reload it once in a while, or you may have run into some problems, but this won't be very long, so you shouldn't have to deal with it that long. This is the link to it. You could just go to phpMyAdmin.net and use try demo, or you can click on this link. And either way, you should get to phpMyAdmin. And just so there's a little less traffic, we're going to change it from MySQL to MariaDB. We're going to use the same SQL statement, so it won't be any different, but there should be a little less traffic when we use this. And what we're going to do in here is we're going to create a database with a table in it, and then we're going to design a database. We're going to design the columns, the fields, the data that's going to go in there, and we're going to just put some entries in there or some records in our database, and then we're going to upload our database as a CSV file, comma separated value file, or an Excel file. We're going to turn it into an Excel file eventually. But we're just going to go over creating a database, and then in the second part of this with the world, we're actually going to be just kind of running queries through a database. So for this one, we're going to go to databases. Make sure you go to Maria first. We'll go here to databases, and you could create one. And I used to have a dash in my name when I do it, but I had an error the last time I did it. So what I'd recommend is just leaving out all dashes or spaces and just put SB for SpongeBob and your last name. So I'm just going to put that in there and hit create. That's how we create a database first. And then you create a table, and I'm going to call this characters, and you could call it cars or chars or something if you have an issue spelling characters, but you should only have to spell it once. And I'm going to increase this to 7. We're going to make 7 columns based on our instructions. And actually, let me take a look at my instructions. So we made it MariaDB. We created our database. Now we're creating a table with 7 columns. And then we're going to basically set up our columns or design our database is what we're going to be doing next. So going back here, once I hit the Go button, it'll ask me to put in my fields or my columns. They call them columns in phpMyAdmin. In Access, they'll call them fields. And I'm just going to use a field for ID. And then I'll have fields for first. And I'll just keep them all lowercase, no spaces. First, last, species, occupation, and then age, and then finally gender. And then for the type, the first one for ID, it's going to be an integer type. You don't have to put a length. All that you have to do is check AI so that it creates auto-incrementing numbers for you. So you don't have to put in the ID number anymore. It'll do it automatically. And then for the rest, most of these, you're going to make it varchar, which basically just means text, like a string. So we're going to put varchar for all of these, except for the last one. And before I forget, when you do varchar, we should also put a length. So we'll put 30 as just kind of a default here. So it can't be any more characters than that, but we'll just put 30. We're not going to have close to that. And for age, we could put 3 for that one because we're only going to put 2-digit ages primarily. And for the last one for gender, I'm going to change this, and I'm going to have to scroll down and look for something called enum. You have to go down a little bit and find enum. And then once you get to enum, you're going to click on this little link here, and you're going to put in 3 values. I'm going to put a capital M for male, F for female, and an O for other. And I could hit the minus sign to get rid of that one. And if you don't, it's still okay. And I'll hit go. Don't hit close because it won't save them, but hit go. And now once you have everything set up, double check everything. Make sure you have ID, first, last, species, occupation, age, gender, 7 of them. And then int, and then they're all varchar except for enum. The first one does not need a length. The others all have 30. Age will have 3. And then you'll have your enum values, which will just be the choices. We'll have a radio button to choose them. And also don't forget for ID, if you scroll over, make sure that you had checked AI. So that's all you have to do. Don't hit go up here. You're actually going to go down and hit save down at the bottom right. So I'm going to hit save, and everything looks okay. Now what you're seeing right now is just basically your structure of your table. These are the columns in your table, and you can see that your ID is your primary key, and it's auto incrementing. It says that over there, and then you have your first, last, species, occupation, age, and gender. So we're not seeing anything. When you browse, you're not going to see anything in here yet. So if you go to browse, you won't see anything. Now we're going to add elements in here. We're going to add records to our database, so we're going to do that through insert. And you can actually add 2 at a time. So what I'm going to do is we're going to use SpongeBob characters. Remember, for ID, you don't have to put an ID number. So I'm just going to do SpongeBob for the first name, and then I'll do SquarePants, and then I'll do species as a sponge. And for age, we'll say he's 28, and he's male. So you choose the radio button. And then you could do 2 at a time here. Next one, you're not going to put anything for ID again, and we'll put Patrick here. Put starfish, we'll put unemployed, and then for age we'll put 29 here. You could look up, see what his age is, but that's fine, and he's also a male. And then if you hit go down here, it should add both of them, so I'm going to hit go. And what that should do, now before you do anything, I'm actually going to highlight this, because this is the SQL code that was written to actually insert them into them. So we could have done that. We used kind of a GUI to kind of do that, but I'm going to copy this because maybe the next 2 I'll try doing it this way. So I'm going to hit copy, and I'll go to browse, and browse is where you see what's in your database. And now I can see I have 2 records in here. I have 1, 2. It's not giving me a number, but it will show me a number once I do a query. But I can see there's 2 in here right now, and I have ID number 1 and 2, and that's my finished database right now. So if I want to insert more, I'm going to go to insert. Or I can go to SQL. We're going to do that. And this says select from. I'm going to highlight this and paste that. Now what I'm going to do here is kind of just break this down a little bit so it's a little easier to see what's going on here. And if you could see, it's saying insert into the characters table, and it's saying these are the columns: ID, first, last, species, occupation, age, and gender. And they have null here for ID. We're putting in null so you don't have to put anything. For that matter, you could really just get rid of this, and maybe I'll just get rid of that so we don't have anything in there, so we don't have to put null. I think if we just get rid of that field, we don't have to put it in. So we'll have just 6 values instead of the ID. Now we're not going to do SpongeBob here. We're going to do Squidward, and I'll just fill these in. And for these 2, I put in Squidward and I put in Sandy. Now before I do any more, I'm going to make sure these work first. And one thing, just want to make sure if you're doing more than 1 record, you have to put a comma here and then a semicolon at the end of your SQL statement. And I'm going to copy this just in case I have any issue. I could use it again, or I could fix it if I had any issue. So I'm going to run an SQL. This isn't actually a query. This is an insert statement to put records into our database, just like using insert. So let's see how this works if we hit go. And notice Squidward is an octopus, not a squid. And that worked. It took a little bit, but it seemed to work. So let's hit browse. And there's our database. Now has 4 in there. And whether you like using insert or whether you like using the SQL statements, that's up to you. I don't know if one's, I'd say the insert's probably quicker, so I'll go back to insert and I'll do it that way for my last 2. I'm just going to put 2 more. We'll just have 6 altogether. That's all we need for this assignment. I'll do insert, and again, skip putting in a value for integer, and for these I'll put in some females. So I'll put in Mrs. Puff. Her first name is Poppy, and she is a puffer fish. We could just say driving instructor, because that's kind of what she is, and that might be shorter in our field, so I'll just say driving instructor. And her age, let's say she's in her 50s, I'll say 55, and she's female. And we'll put in Pearl Krabs. She's a student, I believe, and she's probably like 18, let's say, and she's also a female. So those are my next 2 records that I'm inserting, so I'll just hit go. And that actually was probably quicker than doing this, but I could have done this as well. And I'll go to browse just to see what happened. And now I have 6 values, or 6 records in my database right now. And that's all you really have to do as far as designing your database and putting records in your database. If you want to do another query, one of the queries that you could kind of try out here is select all from characters where, and where, we're going to say where gender, and you could just double click on gender. It'll put these little backtick characters here. They're not really quotes, they're called backticks. And you don't have to have them, but they use them when they use these. And then I'm going to say equals female. And I'm going to put that in quotes, just like it is in my enum, and I'll finish it off with a semicolon. So this is a SQL query, structured query language. This is a query statement that's going to use the select keyword and select all using the asterisk wildcard, select all from the characters table where, which is a condition, where the gender is equal to female. So let's see what happens, and I'm going to copy this just in case we have any problems here, and I'll hit go. And you might get an error. If you type something wrong, it might be pink. So if you see green, that's good. If you see red or pink, that's not good. And it's showing me 3 total. Here's your answer. It's showing a check mark here. It's showing rows 0 through 2. Now they count the first row as 0, just like in computers we start with 0. So there's 0, 1, and 2, and there's 3 total. So there's 3 total records here. If you go back to browse again, and it even highlights the field that we were looking at. So that way we're running a query to kind of filter our information that we were looking at here, just to look at the female characters of SpongeBob. And if I go back to browse, I should see our whole database here. Now, all that you have to do at the end of this is basically just export it. Now, an easy way to export it is to go to export, because you can't really save it in here. This will go away after like an hour or so. This is just a temporary kind of area to play with. It'll stay there a little while, but you don't think you can go back to it after a couple hours. Do it at one shot, or else start over again. And I'm going to export this, and this is just so to get credit that you actually did it. And all that you have to do in here in export, you don't have to do anything. You can leave it on quick, and instead of SQL, you want to change it to CSV, which is comma separated values, which should let it open up in Excel, and hopefully you have Excel to do this. If not, you could probably just change the extension to upload it, or change it as a text file. Let's see what else we have here. I guess maybe a text file. If you had any problem using a CSV, if you couldn't make it, because CSV won't upload to MyWarren, but a Excel file will upload to MyWarren. So will a text file, I think just a TXT. I'd have to, if you had any problem, let me know. But let's just try CSV right now. And that's all we have to do is just hit go. And when you do that, it'll download this, and it'll be a CSV file. And if you double click on it, it should open up in Excel, and maybe you could bring it into Google Docs if you didn't have Excel. And that's just kind of a record of that table in the same format using the rows and columns. And then once you come in here, what you can do is you could save as again, and save it as instead of a CSV, make sure you save it as an Excel workbook, so it's an XLSX file. And then just save that. And I still have it in downloads. I could keep it in downloads for that matter. I'll just keep it in downloads and I'll save it. Doesn't matter where you save it. And then I'll go back to MyWarren, and I'll go into coursework, and I'll go to exercise 23, which should be in unit 10. And here it is. It's exercise 23. These are out of order at the moment. But if you go in here and you add a comment, now I'm going to delete this one for now, because I have an older one there. And if you add a comment like this, all that you have to do is use this folder, insert file, and hit the upload button, because you're not going to get anything from here. You're going to upload, and I'm going to go to my downloads, because that's actually where it was. Hopefully I'll see it right away. And it was called characters, so I'm going to look for CH characters. There it is. There's my characters, XLSX, and I'm just going to open it up. Or just select it and hit insert, and there it is. And that's all you have to do to submit it. So that's the first part of exercise 23, is just creating a database in phpMyAdmin demo and basically exporting it once you're done. Now again, all we did here with this database was create 6 records, and we created our columns, we gave them data types, all that. So that's all we had to do there. For the next part of this, just so you get set up, we're going to be using this world database. So we're going to be clicking on this world database, and we're going to be using primarily the country table, and we're just going to be running some SQL queries from here. So you're not going to have to upload anything from here. You're just going to have to record answers. So when you do that one, we might just set up some kind of text file that you could just record answers into as you go. And it shouldn't be that hard. So I'll do that as part 2 of this video.